I want men at our core and our foundation of our Rising Man community who are here to stay. Because the only way that you get the benefit and the value on the return on your investment, if you want to think of it that way, for these strong relationships is by showing up repeatedly over time. All right, here it is. I'm putting out the call to you. I'm calling in the men who are super committed, who want to invest in building relationships that will last a lifetime. If that's you, then keep listening. Because for me, this is the only way that we can create community, create relationships that last, that withstand the test of time, that are there for you when it's not all rainbows and butterflies, that are there for you in your hardest and darkest and most challenging moments. There's only one ingredient that's required for this. Now, before I talk to you about exactly what that is, I want to let you know what I'm onto here, because I've been in the men's workspace for the past decade, and the one thing that I have noticed makes all the difference when it comes to a men's circle, whether it's 8 guys or a men's organization, if it's a couple hundred guys, is the degree to which men can rely on each other. The degree to which I can count on you to do what you said you were going to do. Some of the greatest sports teams were the ones where there was incredible chemistry between the players on a team, where they didn't even have to look at each other or say anything to each other. They just knew where they were going to be. It's like a telekinesis, like a sixth sense that develops by knowing each other so well. And we marvel at this when we see it on TV. When you turn on the TV and you watch a team performing at a high level like this, you're like, how is that even possible? These guys are superheroes. But what we don't see is we don't see the behind the scenes work. We don't see the locker room conversations where guys are mouthing off at each other, screaming at each other, holding each other accountable. We don't see the hours of practice and repetitions that are put in, making sure that when I deliver a pass to you, I know with 100% confidence that you're going to show up for it. You're going to be right where I expect you to be. That's what has made the most powerful teams, the most powerful relationships over the course of sports history. And it's also what allows for really powerful men's communities to develop. Repetitions of you saying you will do something and following through on it. The two of us making an agreement and both sides showing up for our end of the bargain. Now, I know our society and our culture has given a lot of hall passes on this. We've excused a lot of behavior when it comes to saying one thing and doing another, right? All these moments we've had and these examples we've had of people saying one thing and doing another that has validated and even given permission for us to show up in that way. But what it's done is it's made a more transactional type of culture around the way we show up for each other's men. And what we need to appreciate is that that is having a tremendous impact on the trust that I have in other men being able to show up, and the trust that other men have in me, and that reciprocal relationship that happens in all of our different communities and all of our different interactions. So now is the time. Now is the time for us to really change that. And as I've been reflecting on the Rising Man community over the course of the past 3 years, since we've really staked our flag in the ground and said the Rising Man is here to stay, I've had to look at how are we building culture? How are we building community? How are we calling men into these deeper connections? And it all came to a really crystalline moment for me just a few weeks ago. I invited 40 men from all different circles and parts of my life to join me here on my land where I live for a ceremony. A traditional ceremony where it was only men. And the purpose of this prayer initially was to advance the healing of men, to bring greater focus, attention, and energy to this healing work that we're all doing, reconditioning the masculine and rewiring ourselves as men so that we can be the leaders and the providers that our families and our communities need. What I didn't expect is that this prayer would become very personal to me. And when I looked around that circle over the course of the evening into the eyes of each man who was there, I recognized that I'd only invited men who I knew I could trust to show up. Men who I continue to trust to show up in the way that they say that they will, the way that they present themselves. I saw myself looking around a circle of men who I've brought out to the desert to fast. Men that have been in our Rising Man Fire Circle community for months and years. Men who have been through Inferno, who are joining us in our embodied leadership course called Dojo for 6 months. These guys who keep saying yes to showing up for not just each other, but for themselves. Men who now were showing up here on this land to support me in my prayer, for my life, for the support that I need as a man. And it brought all of this into really clear focus. And some of you guys may have heard me talk about this recently. I've been making more of a push to enroll guys in our community who are actually going to be here to stay. Guys who are willing to put the amount of repetitions and time and energy towards those relationships that some other men aren't. Some men haven't been willing to. Guys who are looking to dip and dunk into different communities, which is fine. But I want men at our core and our foundation of our Rising Man community who are here to stay. Because the only way that you get the benefit and the value on the return on your investment, if you want to think of it that way, for these strong relationships is by showing up repeatedly over time. And that requires a few key ingredients. Number one, it requires time, right? You can't just be a part of a community and expect that those strong bonds are going to be there after just a couple of weeks or a few conversations. Number two, it requires energy to show up for calls when you don't want to show up and to be supportive of people and their efforts and their events and whatever they're doing, even when you don't want to also be vulnerable and lower your defenses so that someone can see who you really are and trust that you're willing to reveal your full self to them. These are the things that are required to develop that depth of relationship. You don't get that from 3 days alone together for a retreat, right? You can initiate a strong relationship that way. But in order for that relationship to have substance, we have to repeatedly and continuously show up for each other and for ourselves. So those are the men that I'm calling towards the center of the Rising Man Circle. Because I know there's always going to be guys who are on the periphery that need to find their way in towards our central fire. And that's fine. If you're one of those men right now and you're hearing this message, you're like, whoa, dude, that's pretty intense. That's okay. Don't let that dissuade you, but notice what happens from the other men who are in our community who keep leaning in. All those things that you say you want, all those things that I hear guys say, I came to the podcast because I wanted community, I wanted brotherhood, I wanted to be more clear on my vision. All of that happens when you lean deeper into this community. Straight up. I could direct you to 40 different men who will tell you the exact same thing. Those guys who keep showing up. Who are there for each other, who are there when I need them, who know that I'll be there when they need me. And I want that so badly for every single one of you guys. Every single one of you guys. I want you to have that. But I know that I can't just give that to you. You got to put in the effort and the energy. You got to trust that that will be reciprocated back to you if you open up your heart and reveal enough of yourself. And it only happens by taking that leap in. Participating, being part of this Rising Man community, giving more of yourself, maybe more of yourself than you ever have anywhere else in your life. The only way to get the rewards of what a community like this has to offer. So I'm looking for my 300 Spartans. Yes, and if that's one of you, if you're one of those guys who's so committed to leaning in and to supporting others and being supported by others, then come join us. Send us that message. I am one of the 300. Do it. We're already about 50 strong. 50 strong guys who are at the core of that community. And I'm looking for the other 250. I'm looking for the rest of you guys who are really ready to anchor your feet in and to invest the time to make these relationships develop. And for the rest of you guys, that's okay too. Maybe today you're not ready to make that commitment, but maybe it's next week. Maybe it's next month. Maybe it's next year. Whenever it is, you can trust that the core and the foundation of this community will be here. We'll be here to welcome you when you're ready to make that commitment. I'm not interested in having the whole Persian army of millions of men. No. I've seen what happens to organizations like that. They lose their identity. They forget why they're there in the first place, and eventually they start to crumble from the outside in. I'm looking for the 300 rising men who will forever be part of the foundation of this community and this culture. So if that's you, send us a message. Let us know. If you're already on that train, then reinforce it. Reinforce it and spread that message to the men that you know deserve to be a part of this 300. All right, if you enjoyed this one, stay tuned because we got more heat dropping each and every week here on the Monday Morning Meditations. In the meantime, I send you with blessings, kindness, and love to you and all of your family. Peace out.